Sets join Forest for a very inflated fee. I think we can all agree. But look, I think this is the correct decision for everyone. It's a correct decision for Morgan. It's a correct decision for us. And I think it's a pretty decent deal for Forest as well. I'll speak about Forest later. But from a Wolves point of view, look, I've got a lot of love and time for Morgan Gibbs White. You know, as someone that's born and raised in Wolves, you want to see people come through the academy, especially the local lads. That's the job of the academy, also, be to take local talent and bring them through and give them a career into football and also make money for the club. And we've done that with Morgan. And I genuinely wish him the best at Nottingham Forest. And, you know, for someone that's from the area and on the same age as Morgan Gibbs White, you know, I think we were born in the same week. I want people like Morgan to do well, and I think he will do well at Forest. But I think I've seen some Wolves fans moan about this. And I think the two big things people are saying is they think his market value will increase. Because look, ultimately his market value has been dictated by the price. He's a £25 million player, but with add-ons probably a £35 million player. So if his market value is £35 million right now, the two complaints I'm seeing people have about him, it's they think his value could go up in a year's time, and depth, as in depth in the Wolves squad. So let's address both of those. First of all, with depth, we are going to play a 4-3-3. Let's be honest. I don't think that's a particularly unfair thing to say. I think we will play a 4-3-3 this season. Now Nunez is in, and Morgan's not going to play up front. Val Jimenez will be back, and we are going to get a striker on loan. So that leaves Morgan with right wing and left wing. Okay, there is two spots. Maybe he'll drop into midfield every so often, but with Dendoncker and Kundal, whatever, we've got depth there. He will play on the right or on the left, I assume. Right? He's an inside forward. That's what he is. So we've got Guedes, we've got Pedence, we've got Adama, we've got Neto, we've got Hwang, and we'll have Chiquinho back. Like, I'm sorry, yeah, but if people saying maybe a few weeks ago when we had injuries and stuff and Guedes wasn't here, we've got depth now. So I think this whole you can't sell him because we haven't got depth thing is a bit of a dumb argument. And regarding the market value, like, I know it says that his value is 8 million here, but ultimately Forest have paid 25 with add-ons. So he's a 35 million pound asset right now. As a Wolves fan, you've got to ask yourself, what case is more likely? Morgan Gibbs White hits the ground running in the Premier League this season and becomes a 60 million pound player in a year's time, and we get more than this 35 million pound, or does he not have a good year, doesn't adapt, doesn't play well on the right wing, in a Wolves side doesn't actually create a lot, then all of a sudden in a year's time he's got 1 year left on his contract, because again the contract's an issue, and then he's all of a sudden a 15 or 10 million pound player, and Wolves have lost out on a very big fee, which has maybe helped bring in Matthias Nunez. So look, I don't want Morgan to go, but if he doesn't want to sign a contract, we've already got depth in the squad in areas that Morgan, I assume, will play. And now we've got Adama and Hwang and Guedes and stuff. And I think it's more likely, I back Morgan, by the way, I rate Morgan, but I think it's more likely that Morgan in a year's time is worth either this amount or less than it is he's worth double it. Do you get what I mean? And there's so many other things as well. Like, I think selling is an art. You know, people talk about how as a club you've got to have really good recruitment inwards. But I think selling is a really key thing as well. And Wolves do get good money for players. We've got good money for Rafa Mir. We've got good money for Ruben Vinagre. And look at other clubs. Look at Harry Maguire going for £80 million. Look at the money Liverpool got for Coutinho. Sometimes you have to sell players you don't necessarily want to sell to reinvest. And I think I don't think you can turn down that money. And look, as much as I like Morgan Gibbs White, I think it's been a bit easier by the fact he hasn't really torn up trees so far. He's played 2 games. He's played 2 full 90s. And I don't think he's been fine. But I don't think he really did anything against Leeds, albeit it wasn't really his fault. And I thought against Fulham he was a bit hit and miss. And I thought he was a bit better than Daniel Pedence. But I think Wolves probably look at it as well and saying him and Pedence are kind of the same mould. You know, they're both kind of not quick enough to be a winger, but they're both probably a number 10, but they're probably going to have to play out wide. They both lose the ball a lot, but cannot unlock a defence. And maybe Wolves are just looking at it and saying, we've already got Pedence, we've already got enough wingers. Maybe we don't need 2 of them. I think another thing people will get forgetting as well is when it comes to depth, there's only 15 games left until January. So, because obviously the World Cup, right? And obviously Morgan won't go. But the odds of Neto, Hwang, obviously Chiquinho's already injured, but the odds of Guedes, Pedence, Adama, Neto and Hwang all getting injured and we need Morgan Gibbs White in the next 15 games is so low. I'd maybe get it a little bit if there wasn't the World Cup and we had another 25 games still to play or whatever, but the odds of us getting so many injuries, we need Morgan Gibbs White in the next 5 weeks or something is mental. So I don't think it's as big of an issue. And also, Wolves have learned from Fabio Silva. Nunez is here now. Guedes is here now. You know, when we loaned out Fabio Silva and didn't buy a striker, people moaned about it, rightly so. I didn't have an issue with it at the time, but I was probably wrong with hindsight because I just assumed we'd have a replacement lined up. We've learnt from that mistake. And just to round off on Morgan with Wolves, look, we've given him a career in the Premier League. We've done our job, and sometimes things just don't work out. People want him to become the next, like, you know, we haven't really had a player that's come through the academy and become a regular first teamer, but sometimes things just don't work out and aren't meant to. You know, I think Morgan kind of, and by the way, the fans haven't been great to Morgan Gibbs White. Like, I've been to games where some of the shit you hear about Morgan Gibbs White's embarrassing, man. And I think sometimes you break into the first team too early. Like, Morgan made his debut as at Stoke in the FA Cup. I think he just turned 16 or maybe just turned 17. And I think sometimes you break through a bit too early and you have a bit too much pressure put on you. And I don't think it really helped Morgan. I think people just assume that, oh, okay, he's made his debut now. He'll be around in a year or two. And I think that was a bit unfair on him, and it didn't work out. Obviously, Nuno screwed him over with the recalling of the loan. Obviously, he broke COVID, which when he broke COVID lockdown rules, it was really early on, so people had an issue with that, which is why people think he has a really bad attitude. Although from what I've heard from journalists and stuff, listening to podcasts and all that, I've never heard anyone say Morgan Gibbs White has a bad attitude, but, you know, whatever. Sometimes things just come to an end, and I wish Morgan well, and I think it's the right business for Wolves. But from a Forest point of view, I think this is great. You know, he's got a relationship with Steve Cooper. He's a good age. You know, I think Forest are doing the right thing with their transfers. Also, he's got a really good injury record. Morgan's never been injured at Wolves. And if you're a Nottingham Forest fan watching this, you might hear a Wolves fan say on Twitter, he's got a shit attitude. The reason people say that is because he broke lockdown rules really early on. But a lot of people broke lockdown rules with various degrees. Like, I remember when you were only supposed to go on one run a day. I went on loads. You know, I get Morgan did worse than that. But people broke lockdown rules, and he was 19 at the time, whatever. I wouldn't really go in on Morgan too much for that. He covers a few positions for Forest. My only concern is if Forest do stick with this 3-4-1-2 or 3-4-3, I don't really think he's a guaranteed starter over Jesse Lingard or over Awinyi or over Brennan Johnson. But ultimately, it's depth, and, you know, I think Forest are going down the right track. They had to buy a whole new squad. They bought a lot of players who will stay with them even if they get relegated. Apart from maybe Lingard, all of these players they bought will either stay with them if they get relegated or will be so good for the Championship that they will guaranteed get their money back. And Morgan Gibbs White is a bit of an overpayment, let's be honest. Especially if those add-ons are very likely and it is a £35 million transfer, it's an overpayment. But there's always English tax there, and even if Forest do get relegated, it'll be really good for you in the Championship. He covers a few positions, he's a good age. I just don't really see any downsides for Forest apart from the fact they've overpaid. But ultimately, I don't think when you look at Forest's transfers, and I've done some videos on them before, Awinyi, not an overpayment. Nico Williams, not an overpayment. Dennis, not an overpayment. Mangala, Niakate. I think Biancone is a bit of an overpayment. Freuler, Richards, but none of these are overpayments. Apparently Lingard's not even on 200 grand a week. I thought he was, but apparently he's on 80k. So I don't think really Nottingham Forest have overpaid for anyone. So from a Wolves point of view, sometimes things come to an end. We've reinvested the money. I don't really have any issues with depth because we've got a lot of players in that position. And ultimately, I don't think Morgan Gibbs White is going to become a £60 million player. So if we're getting £35 million for him now, it's worth it. And for Forest, he could keep them up, and ultimately it's worth that money. So yeah, I wish Morgan well. I hope it works out for him. And I think things have come to an end in the right way. But yeah, that's just my thought on Morgan Gibbs White. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel and like the video. And yeah, peace.